Astrea can go back to the 2020 greatness when he had his best performance in these NA region locked events. In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who has won it twice last year, spawning as the Red Protoss. It is Neeb.
And his opponent, the challenger trying to make his way through. It is Alpha X's Astrea. I gotta say, during that first little camera shot where we got the full view, he looked a little like, I don't know, queasy, maybe? A little bit under the weather, maybe tired. Hopefully he's like feeling all good. All it takes is, let's say you ate something that doesn't agree with you. The nerves of a pro match can really, really kick that into a place of extreme discomfort. So hopefully he's doing all right.
You're talking about Astrea or?
Astrea, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I did not see it, but if you're telling me, doctor stat first, I will trust on your verdict. But no, hopefully he's all right. Maybe he's just feeling a little bit nervous because he obviously wants to do better than he did last year. Top 3 is the bare minimum that any of these 3 would settle for in the beginning of the season. And having like 1 third place finish is obviously okay. But the moment that, all 3 finals are between Neeb and Scarlet, you're like, well, what happened? In 2020, I was the up-and-comer, and I was actually the best performing one of the 3. And then in 2021, suddenly they're all outperforming me. So Astrea, I'm sure that he's very fired up, but he does know that he's got a legitimate disadvantage playing these games from Korea. At least they are playing on the West server, but Neeb's ping is still going to be quite a bit better on West than it will be for Astrea.
If the thing is, if it's actually, I don't know exactly where Neeb is. If he's East Coast,
yes,
it's not that much like Far East Coast. It's not that much better. No, it's like because I've played with like 80 ping to West, and it feels like 120. Like it feels better to play to EU.
Yeah,
I felt that before.
But have you played from Korea on US West?
I can honestly say I have not. No.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's quite a bit worse. I don't think it'd be very fair to say like, oh, this is pretty comparable. Sure, Neeb won't have 1 ping or 5 ping, but it's definitely a whole lot better from East Coast to West Coast than it is from Korea to the West Coast. I mean, America's big, but it ain't that big.
Well, I mean, like, it's it's everything's bigger in Texas or something, and if America's how many Texases, then I don't know. I'm sure we could do the math on that, but we don't have enough washing machines to measure all of America across. We do have a fake pylon, by the way, coming out from Neeb, just trying to, screw with his opponent a little bit, mess him around. But other than that, nothing too crazy. And it's actually going to get scouted here by Astrea. Nice job.
Yep, that's nice. Even if there is nothing there, it's still very nice to get that confirmation, and that's where the pylon is. And since Neeb is the one who opened up with a depth, you're always a little bit concerned if you see your opponent is opening up with a depth. You're like, all right, whenever they open up with the depths, it could be something cheeky. These guys are not often just relying on like, oh, let's hope we get lucky and get 2 adepts in the main base and kill 5 probes. Most of the time, there is a very solid reason for it. This time around, doesn't seem like Neeb had too much of a reason, as these adepts stepped into the wrong neighborhood, and it's going to force out the recall. But yeah, the Stalkers as a follow-up, and then double Sentry as a follow-up. So Astrea can actually be quite happy with this opening, because at this point, nothing really happened. But Astrea has a slightly quicker nexus. Twilight Councils are dead even, but Neeb also has 2 adepts, and at this phase in the game, the adepts don't really do much for you. Now, of course, maybe when it's like 3 base against 3 base, we can shade the adepts into the natural and find a couple of probe kills then. But at this point, Astrea is always going to be very wary of the fact that Neeb has 2 adepts out, so he'll be on the lookout for them.
Yeah, he'll certainly just be, like you said, on the lookout for it. Just got to be a little bit mindful, a little bit careful. We are going to see the Phoenix just barely missing these 2 adepts. Not a big deal, but, we'll keep an eye on those, see if they can get something done a little bit later on. I was wondering if that pylon on the bottom right from Astrea might have been for a proxy Dark Shrine, but not going to be for that. Just potentially hoping that Neeb is counting pylons and that maybe he does panic. Oh, actually, hang on. Oh, it's exactly for what I just said it is. Okay. All right, I saw the probe go back, and I was like, nah, there's no way, right? But it actually is going to be for a proxy Dark Shrine right there. Okay.
Neeb has a relatively quick robot though, so normally he shouldn't be in too much danger, but if you don't know there are Dark Templars potentially heading your way, then most of the time you won't keep your first observer at home, and these DTs can still find a lot of damage. Astrea also warped in a couple of adepts, and he's just kind of hiding them. I think that Neeb did see it earlier when they ran into a probe. Astrea's going to set up for the pylon. It's a very cautious and safe start so far to this PvP best of 5, where Neeb is going to, I think this time around, let these adepts finish up against only 2 stalkers. It would be okay, but a recall has been used, and then you don't want to do it. Just try to get lucky again. It's all about the observers now that Neeb is going to make, right? How many observers is he going to make? As Astrea runs his adepts into the natural, and he will find 3 probe kills. No, just 2.
Yeah, Neeb actually had an opportunity right there to drop a force field and prevent like any damage from being done, but unfortunately either wasn't paying attention or chose not to use it. But I have to assume it's the former. I can't imagine you would choose to lose a couple of workers right there when you can prevent it with a quick force field. But yeah, it's the name of the game is going to be where does the observer go, and how many observers do we have? We got that one observer just sticking around at the natural expansion, and if he keeps it there, you know, he's chilling. But if he moves it out at an inopportune moment, he could suddenly find himself losing 15, 20 workers and ending up really far behind.
Yep, and it'd also be very bad if Neeb decides to become aggressive, right? Because dealing with Dark Templars at home is very difficult if you're also trying to micro your stalkers on the other side of the map. And since Neeb made a War Prism, I kind of have the feeling that he does want to be aggressive, as he is still poking around with these adepts. Hate it if he lets this one finish up, but Neeb is moving out right when the DT show is the absolute worst moment for Neeb to move out. One Dark Templar runs into the natural, the other one runs into the main. Neeb has to recall, I think. If you don't recall, you just take a tremendous amount of damage, but he is indecisive. Will he recall? He only recalls 1 stalker. He missed the army. Is that on purpose? I guess maybe it is, but that feels very silly, because now he's actually still going to have a hard time cleaning this up.
Yeah, this is a disaster right now for Neeb. He has lost 17 workers. Astrea is down a lot of army supplies, so Neeb does have the potential to try and get something done on the other side of the map, but he's not going to commit. And I think he needed to right there. Well, actually, maybe he will now. He definitely needs to commit, though. He is too far behind to macro out of this. He's down over, what is that? That's 33 workers, 32 workers?
Yep. 32 workers at this point. I mean, I'm totally with you. Neeb needs to make something happen. Maybe pick up the sentries, blink into the main base. That could be kind of cool. Even though Astrea does have blink, of course, but this could still get pretty gnarly. We have picked up the sentries. We are going to drop some force fields. This is going to be fun. Now, Astrea is actually in a bit of a rough spot too, as he uses a recall to make sure that the Immortal can participate in the fight. The gateways are going to get unpowered, I want to say. Can Neeb drop another force field? No, he cannot. Not in time.
Oh, yeah, he's going to try and zone his opponent out from the natural. The thing is, Astrea is down in army supply, but he will be able to outproduce his opponent significantly. Neeb is building probes behind this, which I don't know if I agree with. Oh, a very bold blink forward. Doesn't go after the War Prism initially. A little bit of a missed target fire right there, but the Immortal for Astrea is going to be very, very useful here. Should be enough. Yeah, without warping on the right side, I think.
If we lose this battery overcharge here, or at least the battery, that's going to be hard, because now no overcharge will be available. A couple of Zealots in the mix as well. They can soak up a couple of these Immortal shots. Neeb might still be able to make some magic happen, and that should have absolutely not been the case. I think Astrea made a big mistake with that forward blink. Here's the forward blink of Neeb. He gets one of the Immortals immediately. The other one, not quite, but it's 54 army supply against 29. Astrea's in trouble.
Yeah, he's in a huge amount of trouble right now. He is losing a lot of probes. He will blink forward, does get the War Prism this time, but it is going to leave a lot of his army stranded. The counter blink from Neeb grabs his Immortal, and now Astrea, who found himself up so many workers, couldn't hold the counterattack. And Neeb, he's going to put himself up 1-0 in this series, barring some kind of utter miracle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really believe in that miracle after Astrea is going to lose this Nexus too. He may get one more Immortal, but I mean, Neeb is going to have to take the worst fight ever in range of a battery overcharge for this one Immortal to make the difference. But Neeb is just going to go ahead and gun down that battery immediately, rightfully so. We do have Astrea counterattacking with like 5 or 6 Stalkers, but Neeb is going to have plenty of reinforcements to deal with this. I can't believe that Neeb still won this game, and he moved out at the absolute worst moment, took so much damage from those DTs, but then he still just won the fight that decisively on the other side of the map, that he is going to put himself 1-0 ahead. Astrea is going to kick himself for that one stat fest. You have a battery in the natural, you have a battery at the third. There was no need for Astrea to blink forward, and when you blink forward you lose all the micro potential, right? Because you can't blink back anymore. So he blinks forward, didn't get the prism, and honestly just didn't get a very good fight.
Yeah, I think if he gets that prism, it's still not a great move going with the aggressive blink, but I think it's good enough. because he's going to be able to reinforce. Eventually, he should clean up that push. But with him blinking forward and not getting the War Prism, that gave Neeb the ability to take a really cost-efficient fight and continue reinforcing the push. And I mean, the other problem we didn't talk about really is that Astrea didn't have a lot of production. So even though he was up a ton of workers, he wasn't able to make use of it as much as we might expect in a situation like that.
Yeah, but I mean, once more, if you have a battery in the natural, you have a battery in the third. Like, we made those investments so we can actually rely on them if we need them the most, right? And if Neeb is the one who ever needs to make a forward blink, then he loses that micro potential. And even if he has a few more units, you can pull the probes. He needs to kill the battery, otherwise the battery has too much impact. So I think Astrea would have been totally fine if he would have just been a bit more patient. But he got a bit ahead of himself. Maybe he thought this game was pretty much locked up after all the damage he did. It's like, all right, let's blink forward, win the fight, and win the game. It's never going to be that easy against the great Alex Sundarov.
Yeah, and something else we didn't talk about is that Neeb was really gearing up for that push. Like, he went for the 4 gateways before the 3rd Nexus and had just been pumping units. So even without the damage, I think Neeb was already down a couple of workers and he really was intending to push out. So it was always going to be an army disadvantage for Astrea, but I do agree he could have held, I think.
Yeah, and of course, but don't forget that Neeb also, even if he has a few more units, like, you don't necessarily expect to straight up win the game there. And his entire push arrived like a minute later than I think it was intended to arrive, because he obviously had to deal with the DTs. He had to recall an observer, he had to warp in a couple of stalkers at home. So it really wasn't the push that I think he was initially looking for. And then the fact that it still worked, kind of crazy. Of course, DTs is an investment, but if they kill over 20 workers, well, you're super happy with your investment. So this man will be kicking himself a little bit for that first game, but let's see if he can clean things up a little bit here in game 2, as we have loaded into Glittering Ashes. This is the main base of Alpha Axis Astrea.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left for Onside Gaming. It is Neeb. What do you think about this low ground setup from Astrea? I feel like he hasn't done this in most of his games. So going for a little bit of a mix-up here, a little bit of a mess around.
Yeah, I've definitely seen him do it, and I've also heard him talk about it. I think in the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice, he did it once or twice, and we spoke about it. And I think in one of the interviews, he said, he's like, well, PvP is just kind of crazy. He's like, I know this is very good, but I'm just not very good in necessarily defending all forms and waves of aggression. So I like doing it, but at the same time, I'm still a bit confused on what I'm always supposed to do and what I'm supposed to be looking for. But he's just trying to figure it out as he goes. The funny thing is that Neeb scouted this very quickly, and this is like, all right, mate, if you want to go for 1 gate fast expand, I'll go for a 1 gate fast expand. Even if my buildings are on the high ground, I'm going to have a much quicker nexus than you. So Neeb is actually getting the best of this little build order dance.
Yeah, I actually like this situation for Neeb a lot right here. This is like you said, he gets the pretty significant build order advantage, and now he can deny his opponent from taking that nexus. But he's not going to drop the pylon there. I think I would have liked to see him drop it, but there is something to be said for letting your opponent take it so that they don't try and do some kind of one base all in and make things really complicated.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is as well, because even if Australia just gets that Nexus down now, Neeb's Nexus is pretty much finished up. So, you know, it's not bad. If anything, it's kind of nice to see that your opponent is doing the same thing as you, just a whole lot later. So you're going to have a few more probes, a few more chronos, and Neeb should just always be ahead from this situation.
Yeah, and he's going to be in a comfortable spot. I will follow it up with the Stargate, which I think is pretty great. Astrea, is he going to go for he's got a lot of gas and minerals in the bank. I know he usually doesn't open up Stargate in this matchup, but most of it is he prefers not to play Phoenix versus Phoenix, not because he can't do it, but because he doesn't think it's as fun and doesn't necessarily play to his strengths as much. But if he doesn't, he's going to be floating a lot of gas. Like, he's already up at 300 gas right now.
Yeah, but maybe we'll make a few more sentries to spam some hallucinations. If Neeb goes for oracles, then it's kind of nice to have a couple of hallucinations, right? You just hallucinate a Phoenix, make sure that it follows the oracles of Neeb. I assume that Astrea just wants to go Twilight Council and a Forge here on that.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. We are going to see this Adept. Oh, if he'd gone into the natural, he could have gotten a lot of probes right there. But as it is, He goes to the spot where there is a shield battery. A little bit unfortunate for Neeb, but he is going to get into that natural. I think might even be able to get a couple of probes down here. One probe, not bad, but a full scout.
Yeah, Astrea can't be too happy with all of this though. Neeb enjoys a 4 to 5 worker advantage. The Twilight Councils are almost identical, but then Neeb also has an Oracle out, and that Oracle will always have some potential. Astrea is already sending out a probe. I don't know if that's for a pylon on the other side of the map, or if he... Well, I'm actually a bit... very curious about what he's going to do with that probe. Let's see if this Oracle of Neeb can find some damage. Well, that's not the greatest drive in by Neeb, as he gets one probe, but immediately takes a lot of whole damage to his Oracle.
Oh, he tries to get a little fancy and dart back in as he distracts with those two stalkers at the front. Not going to be able to do so, though. Did these two probes just see each other and kind of just pass each other like ships in the night? It kind of looks like it.
I don't know, but if they did, like ships in the night... Ooh, Stasis in the main. Could be big. But Astrea is paying attention. That's still a decent amount of workers, though. It's 4 that get stuck, and now you also temporarily need to resaturate the gases. A Dark Shrine this time around for Neeb. He's like, hey, man, those DTs you had in the last game, pretty good. Let's go ahead and give it a shot myself. And Neeb is having a great time here, man. Like, I know not a lot of crazy things have happened, but I just feel that all the little things have gone in Neeb's favor, and it's a Dark Shrine for Astrea, too, already.
And it's another proxy Dark Shrine, I believe. Out of a possible 4 times in the 2 games we've had so far, we've had 3 Dark Shrines, and 2 of them have been proxied. We are indeed powerful clowns in NA.
I mean, Neeb is obviously the one without a Robo. He does still have that Oracle, but imagine a world where he loses that Oracle right when the DTs show up. That'd be very, very problematic. Astrea is going to try to create some chaos, blink into the main base with 4 Stalkers, shade to Adepts. This is lovely play. I actually really like this idea. Blinking a couple of Stalkers into the main, and whenever you lose probes, you're not really super occupied in building a robotics facility. So these 2 Adepts should have a lot of potential, and he scouts the Dark Shrine. This is really cool movement by Astrea.
Yeah, this is a great setup. Andy Reid calls out, saves all the Stalkers. Obviously, those are the more important units. You don't really care too much about losing these Adepts, especially when they get this much damage. 10 probes going down between the multi-prong and the Oracle, as the observer points out, that Oracle is everything right now for Neeb. He really needs to keep that alive, or it might just be lights out.
And I gotta say, it's a little bit silly, I think, of Neeb to just casually rally those Dark Templars in after the 2 Adepts were right next to his Dark Shrine. I mean, Astrea is going to be ready for that. Neeb, however, still does not have a Robo, and he does bring the Oracle here. He's going to try to drop another Stasis if he loses that Oracle. That is literally his only detection at this point.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation. He is going to drop that Stasis Ward, which also creates a problem. Ooh, he gets a nice little connection. Also creates a problem just how much energy the Oracle has. It only has enough for 1 Revelation at the moment, but Neeb with a nice little 1-2 punch does take out the shield battery. It's going to get a couple of probes, but will ultimately get forced away. Have we seen any DTs warped in yet for Astrea? No. But oh man. Okay, there we go. He starts a warp in.
But Neeb might see it. Neeb is getting very, 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 very close, but he doesn't see it. But I mean, now at least a lot of time has gone by, so Neeb is going to have to start worrying about that. That Oracle is flying straight over all 3 bases. That is the only detection Neeb has. A couple of Stalkers get warped in. Neeb, you cannot lose that Oracle, mate. He does have a Forge, but 0 cannons, still no Robo. I mean, it's great. Astrea obviously does not see what we see, right? If he would have seen what we saw, he would have warped in 3 or 4 DTs, and he would have had the absolute time of his life at this point.
Yeah, but instead he is going to go for the more conservative play, which is to say attacking at the front and distracting for the DT. DT will slip into the natural expansion and is going to be able to get a lot of damage done. Neeb on the chase has a bit of an awkward situation now. He will recall back in. Astrea going to try and kind of outmaneuver his army at the 3rd base. Has to be a little bit careful right now. Oh, if he gets force field, this could be really, really bad for Astrea, but Neeb going to let him go.
Yeah, lovely little PvP here between these 2. As that 1 Dark Templar, definitely not the biggest investment. It created a lot of chaos, a lot of lost mining time, and 9 probes going down. And because of that, Neeb was busy dealing with that 1 DT. Actually ended up losing perhaps a few more Stalkers than he was supposed to lose. I mean, they definitely seem to be very evenly matched here in Game 2. That's what we love to see, Stan.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want close games. We want exciting games. And for me personally, I want to see more of both of these things, which is to say, Blink DTs and Disruptor play. I think Astrea, he's on single robo, right? Yeah, just single robo right now. Both players, they're going to be getting some cannons here. It makes a little more sense for, well, actually, I mean, they both need cannons. You just need them to deal with Blink DTs in the late game. But this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable right now. We do have a Astrea kind of running into the army of Neeb. Neeb going to be able to find it here. Fortunately for Astrea, the sentries are not there to cut off the retreat. But that is going to be a bit of a bloody nose here for Astrea.
Yeah, turns around realizing that on that side he would have the superior concave and way more of his stalkers will be able to fire. So he's full of confidence. A little revelation there by Neeb. I almost thought he missed the revelation. Those are clip-worthy moments whenever a Protoss player does not nail the revelation. But he caught the Observer stat fast, so that was completely planned.
Yeah, and oh, now we have a little funny situation where Neeb is going to find Astrea's Proxy Dark Shrine. And that's pretty annoying because, like I said, in the late game, you want those Blink DTs. If it goes super long, you want them for the harassment option. So now Astrea's going to have to reinvest into that. He's going to have to wait a while for that Blink DT upgrade. And Neeb, he's going to have it. He's going to be able to get some... He's going to be able to make plays with those DTs if he is so inclined.
Yeah, the Oracle flew over it earlier, so Neeb already knew where it was, but he was obviously kind of busy dealing with the DT, chasing down that army. I mean, this is going to be kind of cool, right? Because Astrea is going to be the one with the Disruptors. Neeb is the one with the DTs. If you would hide the name tags, I would say like, oh, it's probably Neeb who's Astrea right now, and Astrea is Neeb, right? Because normally Neeb is slightly more turtley, and Astrea is slightly more YOLO, aggressive, always looking for an opening and looking to make plays. This time around, it's going to be Neeb who's the aggressor, and Astrea who's going to slowly but steady just try to get the much more powerful army, but obviously slightly less mobile.
Yeah, this is a bit of a problem right now for Astrea. Not the army compositions. Obviously, the Disruptors are incredibly powerful, but the fact that he doesn't have detection on where Neeb's army is, he doesn't really know exactly where it is. We do see some really nice Stalker positioning right there, trying to get glimpses of his opponent's army, but now he's going to be kind of forced to attack up a ramp, and this concave for Neeb is a lot better.
A couple of cannons here. I mean, 3 cannons and 2 batteries. That should absolutely be enough. Neeb realizing that, yeah, okay, that's just a little too much for a couple of DTs to deal with. But he can always come back with a few more, and then we know how powerful those DTs can be. Sometimes even 4 cannons and 2 batteries is not going to be enough. Astrea right now just kind of wants to get a fight. He's like, hey, Neeb, why don't we just like have our armies look at each other and fight? The Disruptors, though, are very far behind. It's almost like we forgot about them. That's kind of trailing in the center of the map. That is so damn risky. Just imagine if the Dark Templars find them.
Oh, that would be a disaster. The DTs have so much DPS. Instead, this is going to be a base trade, which I think Astrea was hoping to find Neeb's army with the Disruptors. He does get one shot. Another Disruptor about to pop out. Pop the... Oh, go for it, go for it. Now the Blink is back off cooldown.
Whoa!
Ooh, he actually blows up one of his own, I think, Stalkers and a Sentry.
Yeah, at least
a bit
more.
of a miscue right there.
I think 2 Stalkers there. He definitely fired with a Disruptor from way behind. He blinks forward, gets the right one. There are a couple of Immortals in the mix. That one, nobody's going to go off, and it is such a big connection. We have a couple of DTs showing up as well, but this is not a pretty fight at all by Neeb. Stalkers are good, but they ain't that good when they have to worry about multiple Disruptors, Immortals, and battery overcharge. That was definitely a bit of a misstep. Tries to recall, but he loses the Nexus. Oh. This game is falling apart for Neeb.
Yeah, this is looking incredibly difficult. I really don't know what you do at this point because he has to commit to the base trade, but there's so many Disruptors here for Astrea. Oh, he even gets the Oracle. Not that it matters, there's no Dark Shrine, but Astrea is going to be able to take this one out, and he will even the series at 1 apiece. A very normal game that turned extremely messy extremely quickly.
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of chaos towards the end. And I was worried about Astrea when he left all of his Disruptors kind of unattended in the center of the map. He was like, do I bring them? Do I not bring them? And he was a bit indecisive about it. But then he just recalled them immediately. After he realized what was happening, he recalled them. Neeb found some success in the natural, but then he's like, all right, I do think if I really want to commit to this base trade, I need to take a fight at the 3rd. but that was like 2 Immortals, a couple Zealots, Cannons, Battery Overcharge, and multiple Disruptors. I mean, Stalkers are great at getting in range, gunning a unit down. Sometimes you can blink forward, gun 2 units down, but having to kill like 5 or 6 priority targets that quickly, yeah, that's just not going to do it.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of, I think in addition to like Astrea being very well prepared for going to a base trade, I think he also just dealt with the base trade a little bit better. I think he was a little bit, maybe he prioritized the right things. And then Neeb came in with a very late recall, and I think that really was the nail in the coffin. It was already looking really bad, but then when you can't recall back home, you can't get your army where you need it to be, and your opponent is just gutting your main production while you haven't done the same, you're never going to win that scenario.
No. Blackburn is going to be the next map, and I'm sure that Neeb is going to be a little bit annoyed because he probably thought of like the opening build orders. He's like, all right, like we're kind of doing the same thing, except my buildings are on the high ground, but I have a much quicker Nexus. We're both going to go Blink Stalkers, but I have an Oracle to work with. So it actually kind of looked promising for Neeb. It's just that the 4-Stalker hit squad blinking into the main base, then pulling Neeb out of position, so Neeb loses a couple probes in the main, and while he's busy dealing with those Stalkers, the Adept shaded into the natural. That was honestly very sweet play by Astrea, just a great 1-2 setup, and I felt like both attacks were successful.
Yeah, really, really nice comeback game after game one. Game one was a little bit unsettling, maybe for Astrea fans, you know, having that big lead and kind of losing it a little bit, and then game two, you just come in, you make a bit of a statement, so it feels good. Spawning down to the bottom left for Alpha X, looking to take the lead. It is Astrea.
And in the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who has won this tournament 2 out of 3 times last year. Obviously wants to win the first edition of 2022 as well. It is on sides in Neeb.
Something a little bit funny in the early game here is we have, as you know, it's Blackburn, so we're going to be seeing both players going for the 1-gate expand at low ground setup. We have Astrea. He elects to scout out of the kind of the normal location a little bit north here, kind of, you know, just outside of his base. Meanwhile, Neeb checks the pocket base. So it looks like you can tell where they've been proxied in the past by, you know, some of the more wild clowns of NA.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be the first time that we see like a gateway and a forge being built on the high ground center of Blackburn, and they're like, really, is this a thing? And then sometimes it is a thing, and we've seen it be successful even at the highest level, but I'm kind of happy to see that that is not happening yet. I have to say I really enjoyed the 2 games so far, even though they haven't really gone to distance, right? We had like the kind of tease setup where it could have been a nice macro game, but then it still kind of ended abruptly. But they've both had their moments already and pulled off a couple of sweet moves, so curious to see what Blackburn has in store for us. Maybe we'll get our first normal Stargate against Stargate game on one of these 1-gate fast expand maps.
Yeah, that would be the expected value, but once again I have to reiterate, I feel like Astrea really doesn't like that. Like he will avoid it on purpose, even if it puts him just a little bit behind. And we saw from the early game of game number 2 that even if he was behind, you know, he got that disadvantage from the build orders, he was still comfortable to play it out, and it will be that quick sentry coming on down. Astrea, he just doesn't want this to happen. Oh, if he got in a probe there, that would have been really nice. Being able to force that away, but he's still going to be able to take the Nexus faster than his opponent. He's going to be happy about that.
Yeah, it's obviously not the end of the world to not play Stargate, but let's say you just go Twilight, they go Stargate, they will not go Phoenix, then they will go Oracles. And at that point, it just feels that your opponent is always going to get a little bit ahead economically, even with a later Nexus, because these Oracles, they will either find damage or you are over-preparing for them. And in that way, you're putting yourself a little bit economically behind. And the Oracle player is often very confident in going up to 3 bases as well, because even if you have Blink done, how do you really attack, right? You can't leave 4 Stalkers at home and then also still attack with your Blink Stalkers. So I am curious to see how this one will play out. I expect Neeb to kind of enter the mid game with a little advantage, but perhaps Astrea can do something about it. This is a crazy move by Neeb, by the way. I had no idea what the Stalker was doing there, but I guess it's the scout, and maybe we can kill a probe, apparently.
Yeah, and he does actually complete the kill on that probe, so that's kind of funny. That was very bold. Maybe the reason he committed is because he saw the hallucination. I can't imagine, because like he could have been force fielded in there and just lost the unit if he knew that there was a sentry, which he did know that there was a sentry. A very kind of strange move right here. We will see this Oracle coming on in. And can it find any damage? No, not... Oh. Oh, just tags up a couple of probes, but Astrea able to force it back here. Neeb, I think it's the right decision to not commit for those probes. Make sure you keep the hull high, especially as he gets this second Oracle. What do you think about going 2 Oracle here?
I think it's pretty smart. I think that's kind of how you truly force your opponent to stay at home, and that should allow Neeb to go up to those 3 bases a little bit quicker. Even if his blink is 20 to 25, 30 seconds later, it's not a big deal because you can't really move out if your opponent has double Oracle. And even just leaving 2 Stalkers at home is not going to be good enough. So I think I kind of like it. It makes sense. Neeb really doesn't have to do anything with these Oracles except keep them alive. And as long as he keeps them alive, he should be able to create a little advantage for himself.
Yeah, and to go back to your earlier point, I do have to really agree with you. I think that it is always better to go for the Stargate opener. That's why, you know, Max Pax does it every game, and that's why he's so good at the matchup. One of the many reasons, actually, is he's always very, very confident in his early game. But Astrea, during his recent interview, after a couple of days ago, I think, after one of his group stage matches, he said that he would rather play something that he enjoys and that he feels comfortable and confident in than a meta build, which was a super interesting thing to hear and very surprising. But it kind of makes sense, and this is one of those things where he really feels that strong preference.
Yeah, now of course it is better to play something that you're very good at than play what you're supposed to play but you're not actually good at, right? That doesn't make too much sense. And I have to say that he honestly got himself in a mighty fine spot here without really falling behind. He is kind of dancing on the edge here with Blink, but his Blink is done. Neeb does not have Blink yet. Neeb may have even been a little bit paranoid about something that truly wasn't there, but that's the nice thing about moving out with just a couple of units. You put some fear into the mind of your opponent, and maybe they play it a bit more safe. They stop building workers. Meanwhile, Astreas is like, all right, the moment I have Blink, that's when I'm actually not that terrified about those Oracles anymore. So far, so good. And Astrea showing us that you definitely don't have to play Stargate to get yourself in a fine spot 6 minutes in.
Yeah. Nice little concave here defensively from Astrea, just lining up his Stalkers so that they're in a good position. Something very interesting we're seeing out of Neeb, and I think this is now the 3rd game he's done it in a row, is that in the mid game, he powers up to 4 gateways very quickly. And it seems as though I don't know if he wants to commit to it necessarily. Well, you certainly don't want to always commit to it, because if you do that all the time, you get metagame super hard. But it seems like he wants to give himself the option to get very aggressive. And I think that's what that poke was looking for, seeing how many Stalkers his opponent had made. And he sees that Astrea, has a good number of Stalkers. He just says, okay, not going to commit, but he gives himself that option to.
Yep, and if there is a world where Astrea is playing very greedy, or Astrea does something reckless with his Stalkers, loses a few more than he's supposed to, then you can actually capitalize on it immediately, right? Because you do have those very quick 4 gates. So it's probably just a stylistic thing that Neeb has been experimenting with. And he's like, you know what? I like it. I feel safe with it, but I can also be aggressive with it from time to time if I want to. Neeb is 5 workers ahead now. I kind of wonder how that happened, because Astrea was actually the one who was ahead earlier in workers. Maybe Astrea just prioritizing getting an Immortal, and it definitely does have a nice Stalker advantage now. 17 Stalkers and an Immortal against only 9 Stalkers and 4 Zealots. Yeah, Neeb needs to take this very serious, because otherwise he could be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, something very interesting actually. Now, just as you mentioned that, it looked like he was potentially gearing up for a big push. Astrea, he starts up a 2nd Robo and a Robotics Bay. Always got to be very careful about these stasis wards, but he is going to be able to detect them. However, we have an interesting little skirmish setup right there as the Observer gets picked off for Astrea. Neeb like blinks down just as Astrea was about to make an aggressive blink into Neeb's base. And Astrea had a really tough decision on his hands. Do I commit into the main or do I back away? And I think he makes the very wise decision of not committing in, mostly because he's trying to go for this double disruptor. If he loses a significant portion of his army, he could just get walked over.
I know, it's honestly pretty sick how quickly Astrea just managed to go into double robotics facility and the Robo Bay, as Neeb is still just kind of building the basic units, right? He's like, Archon, Zealot, Stalker, we're gonna fight. And then the moment you run into your opponent and you see that they have more than 2 disruptors, you're like, well, That's actually not going to be good. And if they have 4 disruptors, then there really isn't a whole lot you can do anymore with this army, unless you have the quickest, sickest surround out of nowhere. So we have Prism with 4 Zealots flying into the main. The Oracles can actually come in very handy, so that's actually kind of cute. Well done by Neeb. Still getting some value out of those early game Oracles.
Yeah, that's actually really nice. Able to deal with that. Hang on, did he just actually kill 3 probes with the Zealots, or was that somewhere else? He's actually going to warp into the natural and will have a decent little time here. The Oracle's running out of energy, but here comes the attack through the middle. Disruptor shot. Ooh, nice split from Neeb right there. Only, I think, losing 1 Zealot, but he's still going to be a little bit careful. Does not want to blink forward, but apparently he does. Very bold move.
Yeah, one of the Novas kind of went through. I gotta say, these Novas were not the best Novas, but it doesn't matter that much if you still have a battery overcharge to rely on. And Neeb, I think honestly, because he took so much damage, he's like, all right, this is just the moment to go for it. You walked in so many Zealots in my main base, in my natural. Maybe I can overrun you. And I think he did a good job in avoiding the Novas. Only one of those Novas was like remotely decent, but he just didn't quite have the firepower to stick around there, fight a bunch of Blinkstalkers near a battery overcharge, near a cannon. Because by the time that you take care of the cannon and the battery, those Novas are going to fire, or those Disruptors are going to fire again, and then you just have to keep running away. And running away is great if you don't lose any units, but you also won't deal a lot of units, and that's often the bigger problem when you go up against Disruptors.
Yeah, it certainly is. We are going to be seeing some good old Disruptor wars here, though, as Neeb is able to survive well, not even survive, but able to transition into the double Robo Disruptor as well. This is one of the most entertaining scenarios in all of StarCraft 2, and I love it. It all comes down to the vision. It all comes down to the micro, to the multitasking. It is a very exciting sequence.
Yep, Astrea has definitely been enjoying a little lead over the last few minutes, but it's not been big enough that he can just run to the other side of the map. I hope he's paying attention, and he is. Now, playing Disruptor wise when you do have a ping advantage is obviously somewhat of a terrifying thought, but maybe Astrea will just know what he needs to do. So most of the time, the positioning is slightly more important than how quickly can you fire those shots off. But yeah, it's definitely something where I prefer to have low ping stat.
Oh, absolutely. As well, having the Oracles when your opponent does not is a really, really nice thing. Being able to drop those Revelations. Ooh, as I say that, he does blink forward. Oh, no! What a disaster! And he is going to take a lot of Stalker losses. Goes, I think, 1 for 1 on the Disruptors. Oh, man, he tries to catch Neeb napping, but Neeb was very much awake. And he does get a nice pick off right there. Playing with fire, especially with that ping. But a nice move towards the end. That being said, Astrea's going to try and hit in multiple places at once.
Yeah, and so is Neeb, right? Neeb warping in a couple of Zealots in the natural, but that one cannon is actually in a really cool spot. Those DTs do not care about that cannon, though, apparently, and they're just going to go to town on the probes. Neeb saves the Dark Templars as well, and saves the majority of his probes at his own gold. This was actually a very sweet play by Neeb, because it felt like that all could have gone kind of bad, and instead Neeb kind of comes out on top, if you ask me.
Yeah, he does. That was a well-handled situation, and good job by Neeb. Astrea does control the middle of the map, but once again, it's all about knowing where your opponent's army is. Astrea taking this 6 o'clock base is such an interesting maneuver. Ooh, Disruptor being fired out from very far away, but mostly a fact-finding Disruptor. Oh, nice job from Astrea. Gets that 1 Ruptor of his opponent. Meanwhile, there's another. Both players have another set of armies on the other side, on the top.
Oh, gonna be good. That's a 1-4-4 right there, as Astrea did a great job in barely picking off one of those Disruptors. And then he kind of forgot about his own Disruptors, and Neeb gets that sweet connection that he's looking for. Astrea's making a couple of very adventurous blinks, but he does land a good Nova himself. As Neeb is setting up the flank, that's a bunch of Zealots and DTs, and Oracles and Immortals still in the center of the map. All hell is breaking loose over here, StatFast.
It certainly is, and these players are, well, as that happens, they disengage. But man, that was a potentially very explosive engagement. I think that was a wise move from Neeb to back away. Astrea looking for... He just looked to get out, and he was able to escape. Neeb, if he could have wrapped around on his opponent's army, which he nearly did, that could have been a really, really advantageous engagement. As it is, though, Astrea is going to start to really pull ahead in economy if he can keep this base on the bottom side occupied. Meanwhile, oh man, one moment of inattention could spell disaster for both players. But 4 Stargates coming in. Oh god, that's Oh,
Well, he's going to end up losing a couple of his own disruptors, but those Novas were still quite big on the side of Neeb. And now it almost is sad for Neeb that he had so much army supply on the top side of the map, so he couldn't quite capitalize on it. Instead of going through the center here, it would have been way better to go through the left side, because then he would have been able to actually kind of surround these units. And even if they want to blink across, that's still truly going to hurt. But Astrea had a bunch of cannons and batteries finishing up. And it's going to be straight up Tempest for Neeb. And now I truly wonder, oh, one Nova. Would have been bigger. I wonder if Astrea is going to build Tempest as well, or Astrea actually just wants to go into carriers.
If he knows that it's Tempest, he could actually go for Void Rays. Void Rays would deal with those very effectively. I don't know if you can do well. Oh God! Watching a slow Nova chase Stalkers through a slow zone is hilarious. I don't know if Void Rays would be able to deal with Tempest well enough since the cost and build time nerfs. But there is something cool that Astrea is doing. He's going for the triple Robo Disruptor, which I really, really like.
I almost think if your opponent is building Tempest this quickly as another Nova from Neeb does connect with a couple of those disruptors of Astrea, there's still a fight happening on the top side, and Astrea just seems to have way more. So Neeb is just kind of running for the hills, waiting for an opportunity to reinforce or kind of get his own units a bit closer. I mean, it's pretty sick that these two guys have always fights. That disruptor is gonna get a good shot off. Astrea not paying attention there. That's the power of the observer right there.
Yeah, it's all about that vision, and you can know that your opponent is not looking. We will see Astrea able to blink away and avoid a disaster. Oh, now a blink forward from Neeb does take down that one Nova of his opponent, that one disruptor. And so far, they are just trading consistently in the middle of the map. But Neeb seems to have been getting the better exchanges overall. But now as Astrea tries to transition into carriers, this is a very scary moment for him. Neeb's not going to push the issue, though.
No, Neeb obviously doesn't know exactly what is waiting for him, but I almost think it would have been better for Astrea if he wouldn't go into carriers as one of those Novas, makes it out of the slow zone, gets a decent connection, one more does not quite connect, but now the Tempest already here, so Neeb literally has the answer for the units that Astrea currently is building. Sometimes carriers can be great against Tempest, but then you need to somehow find a way for your interceptors to all get out and actually get on top of the Tempest.
Yeah, you certainly do. A lot of stack defense. Oh no! The Disruptor's being sent to the front line. A lot of them going down, but one of them gets a huge shot on Neeb's Stalkers, preventing kind of a disaster right here. We're going to see DTs warping in defensively, but Astrea did bring an Observer with that army. Good decision from Astrea. However, these cannons are going to be able to really, really provide a lot of defensive power here, and that will be a hold on the top side. Astrea going to try and blink out, or pardon me, recalls out. Gets out with the majority of the Stalkers, but was that worth the recall? I don't even know.
You know what's actually quite crazy is that despite all of these fights, where I do think Neeb has honestly been trading a bit better, and that kind of shows in the amount of disruptors that have gone down. 19 on the side of Astrea, only 9 disruptors going down on the side of Neeb. Neeb has never seen this base at 6 o'clock. Astrea has taken this base unusually early. Normally, it's all about I take my side of the map, you take your side of the map, and then eventually we'll fight over these bases in the center. Neeb has a DT in the top side where he's like, all right, this is to make sure you don't get your hands at 12 o'clock. But that base at 6 o'clock has been up and running for a while, and Neeb has no idea about it.
Yeah, I would never expect to look there. That would be kind of bizarre. And it's just funny that no unit has like stumbled across that location just by accident at this point. Oh, wow, look at this. Neeb adding on 3 more Oracles. He really wants vision of his opponent's army. And Astrea, if it comes down to a situation where, you know, it's a split map scenario, even though he's lost more resources right now, if neither of them can take those bases, the resources he mines from that bottom base could be extremely impactful.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we normally talk about TVZs or maybe a TVT, but even in this game, that could definitely come into play as Astrea is putting his disruptors in a very dicey spot here. No, one of the Novas does not even go off. Neeb once more finds 4 or 5 of those pretty expensive Robo units. This is going to add up. Now, I think for the first time in this game, we are going to reveal the carriers. Hey, didn't he just recall, by the way? Didn't he just recall?
He did. Oh, no. Oh, well, hang on. The carriers are actually going to get on top of the Tempest. He does get 2 of them. Ends up being a 2-for-2 trade, which does, of course, favor the Tempest player. Carrier's a lot more expensive, and now it's going to be 3-for-4, which is, yeah, that's much better for Neeb. Carrier's so expensive. They take so long to build. But it's Astrea now transitioning into Tempest as well. Yeah. We might actually just see Mass Tempest versus Mass Tempest.
He was already building those Tempests before, and now Neeb actually did see the gas on the bottom side of the map, so this might actually just make him be a little more aggressive, or at least put all of his Tempests to good use. Air upgrades, Neeb does have a little advantage. His +2 is done. Astrea's +2 only now just starting, but when it comes down to Tempest, I think positioning is a whole lot more important than the upgrades. That's the sweet Nova though by Astrea.
And not just the positioning, but those revelations, those oracles, as we now see Astrea adding on his own oracle. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever seen a Tempest versus Tempest match where they both went Mass Tempest, and we are potentially heading there. Not saying it's never happened. I'm sure that it has, but from me personally, this is new territory.
Yeah, it's actually kind of tricky because Tempests obviously fire very slow, and you don't want to put all of your Tempests in one control group and then just shoot at one Tempest of your opponent, because you really don't need too many Tempests to one-shot a Tempest. As Novas are flying around, DT's getting on top of this army once more. It seems like Astrea is going to lose a lot of his disruptors here, if not all of his disruptors. I mean, Astrea is playing very, very, very reckless. He's going to use a recall, but he's still going to lose 3 out of 5 there. Well done by Neeb. Great target fire, great split up of the target fire as well.
Yeah, and once again, Astrea uses his recall in a situation where it doesn't actually get him that much value and could leave him in a pretty precarious situation. Now, I can't believe this has been like almost pure action this whole time. We do have to point out resources lost is pretty significantly in favor of Neeb, but if Astrea can hold both contested bases, does that even matter?
Well, if he can hold on for them for the rest of the game, then no. But I have a hard time believing that he can actually defend the bottom and the top side at the same time. Because Neeb's army is just as good, if not better, than the army of Astrea. And I also think like Astrea is a player that normally thrives in the chaos, like a lot of Blink Stalkers, setting up sweet moves like that 1-2 punch with the Adepts last game. If it comes to the slow, steady, cannon, battery games, I do kind of favor Neeb, right? Isn't Neeb like an expert in situations like this?
Oh, he really is, actually. You go back to some of the games he's played versus Scarlet, like hour-long games, and it's to say it's his specialty might even be underselling it. Oh, funny to see right there, the probes, I think with their shield or maybe armor upgrades, surviving a little bit longer against the cannons. Huge disruptor shot on those DTs. That is a couple expensive losses, and I think if you are going to even attempt to hold either of these bases, I think as Astrea, you need to be so conservative with your recalls.
Yeah, but I mean, he already used that one before again with the Disruptor, so he can't really recall at this point. Carrier gets a little bit out of the party. Battery Overcharge saves the day, though. Novas, once more, Neeb is the one who fires first, and Neeb is the one who connects. That Carrier will still go down in the end. It does feel like Neeb is just getting victories left and right. The Tempest count currently 13 against 15, so small advantage Astrea, but he's going to lose a couple of Tempests real quick here.
Yeah, this is almost a bit of a flank right here. We do see the disruptors coming in here from... Oh, it's actually going to be Astrea getting a couple of Neeb's disruptors, but Neeb takes control of this position, which means he can take down this base for a long, long time. For probably the last, like, 7 to 8 minutes, both players have been maxed out and instantly remaxing every time they lose a unit, pretty much. But now, for the first time, Astrea getting a lot of his supply taken out and not able to replenish it as quickly as he would like.
Yeah,
Neeb has had...
wondering, right, what he wants to spend it on. Because technically, I think Astrea has the resources to max out, but he's just like, do I want to play this Tempest game? Do I make more Stalkers? Is that silly, though? It almost feels like he's just trying to figure out what Neeb is working with, and then he will make up his mind as he wipes in 10 more Stalkers, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to forget about the Tempest. It does seem like you are slightly better at it, but if you have too many Tempests, just Stalkers alone can actually get the job done if Neeb does not have enough Disruptors to keep Astrea's forward blinks that day.
Yeah, and there are only 3 Disruptors right now for Neeb, and Astrea, he has replenished his Disruptor count back up to a very healthy 5, so that's a really great point. Astrea looking for ways to prevent the mirror versus mirror, very slow siege setup. Finally, we see Big Mama's house coming on in. The mothership going to be joining the field. And I'm actually surprised we didn't have observer speed this whole time for Neeb. He now gets it.
I saw that before, but he did make a lot of oracles, so I was like, I feel like I always talk about it, so I'm just going to let it slide. And it's not like the DTs of Astrea really found that much success since Neeb had cannons everywhere, but there are some scenarios where I definitely think it's important to get it a little bit quicker. I mean, Neeb has been getting phenomenal trades, and I think Astrea is honestly kind of wondering, like, what should I do? How do I win a game like this? As he now has a bunch of Tempers showing up in the main base, but he does not actually have the beautiful orange ball upgrade, so his Tempers are a bit more underwhelming. Neeb is going to get on top of it. He's going to get a couple of shots up immediately. Astrea is in a bit of a dicey spot here, as he's going to donate at least 3 Tempest.
That is a really expensive set of losses right there. And now we see a very kind of disjointed setup right here. Ooh, Stasis Ward catches a couple of these Stalkers, which might be enough for the Mothership Blink Stalker army of Neeb to win the fight temporarily. Both players kind of disengaging right there. Very, very strange setup across the board. Finally, this base going to go down. Oh, Disruptors. I don't think Astrea realized those 2 Disruptors were in the back. Thought he could blink on those exposed Tempests, but very quickly realizes that that is not the case. How many, man, so many units must have gone down in this game. It's kind of wild. 30 Disruptors to 15, 11 Observers to 5. God, so many Tempests. This is just a wild game right here.
Yeah, but I do think that Neeb is putting on a masterclass, as that is a crazy forward blink by Astrea, but it does seem like he avoided the majority of those disruptor balls. Neeb is going to recall in some reinforcements. It's just a couple of Stalkers by the looks of it. Honestly, not a bad fight by Astrea at all, as he realized that if he can just avoid those Novas, his Stalkers are going to do all right. Was it a win? That is kind of questionable, and at this point he really needs a win, as now his Disruptors are going to be exposed. Neeb is going to chase down. Astrea does have a bunch of stocks at home. Maybe Neeb needs to slow down a little bit right now, as his Mothership is going to soak a lot of shots, and it's going to get picked off. Neeb with a nice blink there, almost trapping those units. I mean, Stalkers can also create force fields, apparently.
Yeah, that was a pretty great blink right there. And now we see Neeb trying to mine from the base that Astrea currently has. Neeb is going to come on in, will take down the base, and will force the blink DTs away. Astrea, he's going to try and make some moves with these Tempests on the bottom side, but he has spent all of his bank. He is struggling to get maxed back out, whereas Neeb is still on a pretty significant number of resources and maxed out. I think it's just going to come down to the cost efficiency of Neeb in the long run, and he has really traded extremely well. You were saying that he's put on a bit of a clinic right here, a bit of a masterclass.
Yeah, I love it. Neeb seems so patient and calm in most of these games, where it feels like, well, there are so many things to worry about. And Neeb's just like, nah, vision here, disrupted there, little Tempest there. Every now and then we blink forward, we chase down a couple of these Tempests. And even though Astrea has had his hands on those bases in the center of the map for way more than Neeb, the traits of Neeb have just been so much better that it honestly doesn't matter. Of course, Astrea should have had that Tempest upgrade by now, where the Tempest do 40 extra damage against buildings, because he has used his Tempest aggressively quite a few times, so it's silly not to have it. But it just feels that in games like this, Neeb is the better player between these two. Astrea can win in plenty of different ways against Neeb, but I think in these stand-up scenarios where we both get a lot of cannons, a lot of bases, Tempest, Oracles, it just feels that Neeb is honestly one of the very best Protosses in the world.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would say even one step further, one of the best players in the world straight up at these like set piece scenarios. He's so comfortable, so patient, like you said, and it's not over yet, but it feels, if we look at the supplies, I mean, it's going to take a pretty miraculous engagement, really a massive mistake or set of mistakes even for me. But I don't even know if one engagement would actually be enough at this point.
I think that engagement we had in the center where Astrea blinked forward, killed a lot of Tempest, was honestly one of the better fights he was going to take. Where it's like, all right, I'm just going to go super heavy on the Stalkers, because Stalkers aim bad against Tempest if they can get in range. And that was one of the moments where he was able to get in range, but the victory was just not quite big enough. It was like a little victory, and then with extra reinforcements, we could sort of turn it into a victory and even kill the Mothership, but it just wasn't big enough. Nova's going down. Oh, Astrea loses a few more Stalkers. Neeb feels that this is his moment to close out this game as he blinks forward. Blows up a lot of his own Stalkers. That's a little bit silly, but honestly, after 29 minutes, we'll allow him a little mistake like that from Neeb.
Yeah, and it would have had to have been a much bigger mistake than that. We are going to see the move forward. He wants the Mothership. He's going to die for it, but he doesn't get it before being forced to tap out. And Neeb will take a slobber knocker on Blackburn. Man, what a wild game that was. And both players are going to need to definitely, catch their breath after that one.
Honestly, a sick game by Neeb, where Neeb actually traded so much more efficiently than Astrea. At one point, Astrea losing 17,000 resources more, or even maybe he mined a bit more, but he definitely didn't mine 17,000 resources more. If Astrea wants to win this best of 5, I think it's safe to say that we should avoid the split map scenarios and all the Tempest. Let's see if that's going to be the case, as we're going to go into a quick break, and after that, we'll be back with Game 4.
And we are back for game number 4. It's going to be on Hardwire. These two players just played an exhausting, nearly 30-minute game of almost pure nonstop action. What do you think? What do you think they go for here to either, in Neeb's case, build on the momentum, or Astrea try and come back in the series?
Well, I mean, Hardwire just plays out in a very different way than Blackburn. So even though I said like, if Astrea wants to win, probably shouldn't go into all the Tempest anymore. But sometimes Blackburn just kind of forces that, especially since Neeb is such a strong defensive player. I expect a little more chaos, maybe more Blink Stalkers, more Blink DTs. But the openings are going to be interesting as well. So let's see what both players have in store for us here in the opening match of the DreamHack Masters NA playoffs. In the bottom left side, the man who's down 1-2. Representing Team Alpha X, it is Astrea.
And his opponent, looking to close it out here for Onside Gaming. It is Neeb. And yeah, he's looking damn sharp in this setup here. I want to point something out. He has really, really been going heavy on the static defense. I think kind of leaning in a little bit to Astrea's, hyper aggressive tendencies in the early stages of the, or well, I guess late stages of the mid game, early stages of the late game, when you add on all those blink DTs, those charge lock run bys, he's really gone extremely heavy on the static defense, has Neeb.
Yeah, I mean, if it can force out the scenarios where he feels like he shines the most, it definitely makes sense for him to do so. I gotta say though, Astrea and his cannons also came in super clutch on Glittering, right? Because if he would have had a few less cannons the first time that Neeb tries to get lucky with 5 DTs and Blink, then things could have spiraled out of control really quickly as well. Maybe that base rate plays out in a completely different manner. So it's just something that's very powerful in PvP, and at one point is almost necessary because it can be really hard to be aggressive. But at the same time, you also don't want to be that guy that's like, all right, I'm pushing it a little bit too hard. I'm taking like, all right, trades were not great. And then one Zealot run by or 2 Dark Templars on your side of the map just completely ruin your attack. So it makes sense that they're both obviously appreciating the static defenses.
Yeah. I mean, they're so efficient, and especially when you have that great SimCity like the cannon we saw in the natural. From Astrea, you can get so much value. You pair it with that battery overcharge. Even without the good SimCity, it's strong, but with great SimCity like we saw there, it becomes even stronger. Now, we are going to be seeing double Stalker out of Neeb versus the Stalker Sentry from Astrea. Makes sense. It's a nice, safe build. Really good against, let's say, a 3-gate Robo. I don't think we'll see that out of Neeb, but getting that early scout, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it seems like both places want to expand here. If you look at the amount of minerals they have in the bank, they obviously haven't dropped any other buildings other than their initial 2 gateways. So we're just going to get a nice macro game. They have slightly different ways to go about it. Astrea going basically 1 stock into triple sentry. So that's a lot of scouting, not a lot of firepower initially, but you can obviously make some strong pushes the moment your blink is done. And then you can just attack with a Guardian Shield, a couple of force fields, and a bunch of blink stalkers.
Yeah, Guardian Shield, of course. I remember there was a point where people were saying that you weren't talking about Guardian Shields enough, so you started saying beautiful Guardian Shield, and I thought that was a really fun little part of casting history.
I was more about like, I feel like we always complimented the Terrans and the Zergs on all the cool things they did, and I was like, where is the love for the Protoss plays? You know, look at that marvelous revelation. He's just hitting revelation after revelation. Those skill shots are not appreciated enough, Steadfast.
It is, I mean, the ability to keep tabs on your opponent's army is super important. Like, it's really good. And to be honest, you can miss revelations, like, really easily.
I mean, can we know? I mean, I'd love to say we can, but...
well, it keeps happening, so it must be.
I don't know, man. Missing in the Revelation or an EMP with enhanced shockwaves, I think those things are quite rare.
So there's certainly, certainly like hitting the broadside of a barn or whatever the expression is, yeah. We will see this sneaky set of adepts trying to get on in here, and actually will be able to get here, but does get spotted by the slower sentries. One of the few times where you're happy the sentries are slower than the rest of your army.
Yeah, it could have been really annoying if those adepts show up 5 seconds later and Astrea's army is already halfway across the map. Then you don't even need to try to shade into the main base. You can just shade into the natural, and Neeb would have had a field day there. Now he's obviously very wary of the fact that Astrea would kind of like to move out with his initial set of units, but I don't think Neeb is ultra concerned about it because they have very similar setups, right? Everything in this game has basically been a mirror, other than the fact that Astrea got the 3 sentries a little bit quicker than Neeb did.
Yeah, it's a very similar setup. Actually, wow, look at that. Even the robotics facilities getting finished up at the same time. We have this double adept kind of duel in the middle of the map, which is going to be completely inconsequential to the game, but they are still going to micro their hearts out because that's the kind of players that they are.
Astrea does win that little skirmish. Neeb says, all right, if you're that busy microing adepts, maybe you forgot to make units for a split second, and I can actually do something here. He could drop a couple force fields. Neeb, that is. Neeb is exactly going to do that. And now it's kind of awkward for Astrea, because do you really want to blink across this? He kind of does it safely, but he's actually the one who's losing all the sentries immediately. Neeb should normally be the one losing his sentries, because he's the aggressor. Actually still has one of them alive. If I was Neeb, though, I would definitely disengage now, because he's got no warp gate here, no warp prism to reinforce.
Yeah, and we might even see that sentry being picked off on the retreat. But no, it looks like Neeb kind of with a nice little move right there to force his opponent back. Oh, does he get that one probe? I don't think so. But Astrea gets the sentry anyways. And now Neeb going to attack up the ramp, even with Blink. That's a little bit of a questionable move, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I also think it's a questionable if Astrea stays around too much, because the problem that Neeb just had earlier is also a problem that Astrea has here. You can't reinforce immediately, so you really don't want to stick around too much, especially not when the numbers are this damn similar. Good job by Astrea disengaging there. In the end, it's 57 workers against 56, and we both have 9 stalkers or 8 stalkers, and we both have 1 observer. It's hard for a game to be a whole lot more even than this one has been so far, 7 minutes in.
Yeah, and we haven't actually had that many games throughout, I would say, most of the day where it's been, this even. Most games have been a pretty notable advantage for one player or another going into this stage of the mid game. So for it to be this even in one of these is a bit of a treat. We are going to see most likely another very similar macro game as they both get into their charge, their +1 attack. I'm excited for this one.
Yep, Neeb does have 2 adepts sneaking into that middle line of the third. Actually decides to recall them. A little bit surprised by it, because 2 adepts are not that important. 8 minutes in. I wonder what the idea is behind that one. Neeb has gone up to 5 gas, and if we take a look at Astrea, he's actually still on 3 gases. He is taking gas number 4 at this point, but Astrea's gas economy is definitely going to be slacking a little bit compared to the one of Neeb.
Yeah, and he will go for the quicker disruptor transition once again. Astrea really working hard for the money, so to speak, trying to get those disruptors as quickly as possible. But as it stands currently, Neeb is up a decent bit of army supply. He's not trying to go for that transition. He's also not trying to take a 4th base at the moment. He might decide to just go for a push and say, you know what, I think you're doing the disruptor transition again. I'm going to try and punish that.
Yep, and it wouldn't be bad, right? Because Archons are absolutely amazing if those disruptors are not out yet, or even if Astrea only has like 1 disruptor, you can definitely make something crazy happen with the Archons. And Neeb should have quite a bit of gas to work with, because he's been mining off all 5 gases for quite some time at this point. Instead, Neeb is going to turn around and also drop a Robo Bay and a 2nd disruptor. Maybe he's just that confident in the disruptor wars that Neeb doesn't feel like he needs to push the issue here. Doesn't want to take a fight in range of batteries and whatnot. But I do feel that Neeb is giving away a little advantage that he had, and is now actually going to find himself in a small deficit, because Astrea is going to have the lead in the disruptor count. Now, last game that didn't help, but assuming that the trades are going to go a little bit better for Astrea this time around, that should be very nice for Astrea.
Yeah, that's certainly a significant advantage if you can exploit it, if you can take advantage of it. But the big question is, will he be able to find that? Because, if it's 6 disruptors to 0, that's a huge deal. But if it's, 4 disruptors to 2 or 5 disruptors to 2, it's a little more difficult to make that happen. You certainly can. And especially, look at this. We're going to... Oh, nice positioning right there from Astrea. Once again, just a funny little zealot skirmish, and it's going to end up being a 2 for 2, even though Neeb had the 3-2 advantage. Nice little job from Astrea. Once again, not all that consequential, pretty minor stuff, but cute moves nonetheless.
Yeah, these couple of little skirmishes have gone in favor of Astrea, but I think he also knows that that's not going to win him the game. It's all about observer positioning, as we saw last game. Neeb landing a couple of great Novas, because he clearly saw where the army was of Astrea, and Astrea was not aware of the fact that Neeb had eyes on him. So vision is everything, but with 6 disruptors against 2, Astrea also setting up a very big zealot run-by, and I think there's a lot of surface area on those cannons at the top left. There is potential here for Astrea. It's important he doesn't get too carried away, but there definitely is a lot of potential here.
Yeah, there certainly is. We are going to see battery overcharge coming on in, and that will allow Neeb to deal with this once again. That 3 cannon shield battery setup is going to get some good work done defensively, but a huge set of warpins in the main base will come on in. Oh, Astrea, though, not paying attention to his main army. Going to take a lot of losses. Actually, oh my god, his arm...
His army is disruptors. His army is disruptors and a bunch of zealots in the main base of Neeb right now. Neeb once more landing some very good Novas in the center of the map. Neeb is just gonna take everything out. He's like, I apologize to my own zealots and my own probe that was still trying to mine some gas, but sometimes it's best just to restore some order. And Neeb has slowly but steady restored order, and that disrupted deficit that he found himself in isn't really there anymore. Like 8 against 6, sure, Astrea has a tiny lead, but that honestly is not that impactful, especially because Neeb also has a few more stalkers.
Yeah, great play from Neeb to recognize that his opponent was going for the aggressive move, and he probably wasn't paying attention to his main army, so he gets some really nice disruptor shots with that. Very, very well done from Neeb. It will kind of stabilize a little bit here, but Neeb, I mean, it feels like he's got the read on what Astrea is trying to do, and Astrea is trying to create chaos. Neeb is not really allowing that to happen. Anytime that Astrea's tried, Neeb has dealt with it very well, and in fact, even a little bit better, and he's punished Astrea for having his attention spread over multiple locations.
I do still think that Astrea, when he had all the zealots in the top left, there was a bigger opportunity there, because at that point there weren't too many cannons, and there was actually a lot of surface area on all those cannons. The only thing that Astrea had to do is run 4 zealots deep into the mineral line immediately and surround that battery overcharge. As this time around, Astrea did fire first there, so that's why his Nova will connect, and he's going to blow up. This is going to be really close, but it seems like once more Astrea was the one who fired first. Turned into a 1-for-1 trade though.
He could have made that a 2-for-0 trade, but unfortunately mistargeted the disruptor just a little bit. Nice zealot run by, will cancel the 5th base. And we got to talk about the base count situation. It's actually 6 bases to 4 at this moment. So Neeb, this is not Blackburn. You can't just get away with staying ultra defensive. You will eventually get, outmined in a situation like this on Hardwire if you can't secure your own bases. I'm a little bit worried for Neeb overall, because even though he's taking better trades, Astrea's starting to pull ahead in that economy really, really heavily.
Yeah, and the trades are actually dead even. They're only 25 resources apart from each other, as Astrea is the one who lands a good shot there. And Neeb is now actually the one who has lost 1,500 resources more. So Neeb is not just getting outmined, he's also taking inferior trades. Should land one very good Nova there, but not before losing a couple of his own units. Yeah, turtling into all the Stargates when your opponent is on 6 bases and is actually not getting ultra reckless. Like, if you look at the top left setup of Neeb, Neeb is clearly getting ready as there are more Novas is flying forward, connecting with Stalkers left and right. Neeb is expecting Astrea to just run in 30 Zealots and DTs over and over again. But Astrea is not quite doing that. Astrea is just looking at the army and it's like, all right, let's trade. I know I'm mining more. Let's just keep trading as we have a bunch of Zealots trying to collapse on this army on the left side. Maybe a Nova could connect with the DTs. It's close, not quite.
I do want to point out that Neeb had a really nicely placed observer watching that pretty much that entire army of Astrea, and that was really, really crucial. But yeah, it's a really great point. Astrea has slowed his tempo down a fair bit in response to what Neeb has been doing. It'd be so easy to just continuously throw, waves of zealots at your opponent. Oh, huge disruptor shots coming on in. Neeb, he gets a big one on the backfield. Astrea gonna have to throw out some Novas, will get some decent connections on the counter punch. But that went very well for Neeb right there.
Yeah, this time around, Neeb was more than ready, was very decisive about how he wanted to handle that fight. And that was lovely stuff coming out of the 2-time 2021 American champ, Neeb, as he's going to find all these zealots. So Astrea is going to bleed out some units, and Neeb will finally go up to 5 bases. Man, that's so cool. Even without knowing that the army is there, and Neeb doesn't have an observer. Astrea did have an observer. Neeb just fired immediately. Ooh, needs to be careful that he doesn't blow up his own stuff. That was sick, man. Despite the senses of Neeb there, just knowing that that would be a dicey scenario if there would be a forward blink, so he's already firing in the dark.
Yeah, Neeb looks so dialed in right now. It is actually incredible to me how well he is playing. Oh, huge blink forward. This might be a mistake, though. There's so many Purification Novas available, and he gets a lot of Stalkers on the way out. Astrea does show up with a couple of his own disruptors, gets a couple Stalkers, but not enough to make up for the losses he just suffered. And yes, his bank is gigantic. And his gateway count is also huge, 16 gateways, but he just spent all of his gas bank.
Yeah, that is problematic, because eventually Zealots are not going to make the difference, especially not because Neeb has invested so much in static defenses. 15 cannons, 8 shield batteries, and he's warping in a whole bunch more, so Astrea definitely needs to keep a close eye. Maybe just take a couple of those gases, because of all the bases he has. He definitely doesn't have the gases on the left side. I mean, he was very patient before. Now it feels like he is actually getting a bit impatient as he blinks forward. Does find a couple of disruptors. No, but one Nova should go off. It doesn't. Man, that's insane that he gets all 3 there.
That was razor's edge to being like a game-ending mistake right there for Astrea. But he is able to get all of those Novas, takes them out. And now he's going to be able to find one of Neeb's bases. Yeah, sure, there's not a lot of resources there, but Neeb doesn't have a lot of resources to work with in general. Oh, and he even gets the first shot. Nice job by Astrea right there. He is handling this way, way better than like, both of these players are playing an extremely high-level PvP.
Neeb just seems to be so comfortable in putting himself behind, where it's like, oh man, this is really not looking that good. And Neeb is like, no, it's actually fine. You know, he's got disruptors. Not too many anymore. He only has 3 now against the 8 of Astrea, but he does have a couple of carriers out. And this time around, we don't have a bunch of Tempers yet. I mean, last game, the reason why the carriers look so underwhelming is because Neep's Tempers were legitimately out before the carriers of Astrea. And then Astrea was hiding them for a while. When he finally flew into the main, it was all a bit underwhelming. If you can get multiple carriers out while your opponent does not have any Tempers yet, they should normally be a lot more impactful, but this time around, seems like Astrea does not give a damn. Kills one, so close to killing the second, but decides to disengage.
Ooh, a really nice attempted surround setup here, but Astrea spots it on the left side with 3 observers. He is not going to die to DTs, is what he's saying. He's been on 94 probes right now. He has got a wild economy, and he's going to find this army. He says, you can't flank me, I'ma kill you. Gets a really nice pickoff right there, and Neeb, all of a sudden, he is in a really, really tough spot. His bank is very much depleted. Astrea looking to pounce on this advantage, and he is going to blink forward, takes down 2 disruptors, will be able to get a really nice trade right here. Oh, just as I say that, huge shot on the backfield of those stalkers.
Yep, but it was still not all that bad since he did kill a couple of disruptors. Now blows up his own zealots. That's not great. Also opens the door for a forward blink, but still so many Novas available. So Neeb is going to end up losing a lot of these stalkers, but Neeb still feels that whatever he has left over is powerful enough to chase. A nice forward blink there with the DTs. He's going to get the majority of these disruptors. All but one. Nope, gets all of them. If he loses his carrier, that's still going to be a bit painful. I love that Nova. This connects with a couple of zealots too. Now Neeb should just disengage. A couple of great fights for Neeb, but now I think he needs to chill.
He sure does. And I was just going to say, oh, this is fine for Astrea. You know, like, he's got such a huge bank. But once again, his gas bank is gone. He has no gas bank, and Neeb is still building carriers. We're still a very long ways away from that critical mass. But he just had 3 more carriers pop out. And we're now sitting on 4 carriers for Neeb. If he can get another round, that would be very big. But he might get caught very out of position right here. Astrea looking to take down this newest, freshest base of Neeb, but he will be forced to disengage.
Astrea needs to be careful though, because the disrupt count is a bit higher this time around. The carrier count is also a bit higher. Archons are not great, but are very tanky. As Neeb finds that base of Astrea as well on the top left side, I think that Nexus is absolutely going to get cancelled. Nova's flying in from all angles, and it's Astrea who connects with at least 1 disruptor of Neeb. It's not great, but now all the interceptors are out. Carriers are a little bit exposed. Is that good enough to blink forward? Oh, that disruptor is going to be so big, and it does blow up almost all of these stalkers. Astrea's in trouble, man. He never took the gas in his natural. He never took one of the gases at the 6 o'clock base, and now he is struggling finding the gas that he needs to create an army that's powerful enough to deal with the army of Neeb.
That blink from Astrea was a disaster. He thought he could pick off all the disruptors as he blinked forward, but the 1 disruptor connected. That must have killed like 10 stalkers and did so much. Now we have okay, he does get the disruptor of his opponent right there. And Astrea can still absolutely stabilize off of this, but he just lost a lot. He lost his freshest base, 20 probes went down. He lost so much army. And if you look at the resources lost once again, 9,000 in favor of Neeb. He has been out-trading his opponent. Astrea is going to find this base on the right side, and he needs a win like this because he has lost another base of his own on the bottom right. I still think I like Astrea's position from a pure standpoint. Oh, that's a funny little setup. Oh, more engagement coming on it. Nice pickoffs from Astrea. Getting 2 of those disruptors is huge.
It's funny how it seems like Astrea is getting often very good trades in the scrappy scenarios where we are just dancing back and forth, but then every single time where he's like, all right, let's take the real fight, that's kind of where it goes downhill. That's where Neeb suddenly finds much better Novas, and that is a very good one too on a clump of zealots. All of the zealots that took out that Nexus are now pretty much gone. If Astrea can take out this base though, that is quite nice, because Neeb really does not have much of a bank, and if you have a bunch of carriers flying around, you do definitely want to have at least a little bank.
Yeah, you certainly do. I like these defensive disruptor shots from Astrea. Oh, Neeb kind of getting his army caught right here, very much so. Nice fight right there for Astrea, getting some huge disruptor shots. Neeb trying to punish the move on that base, but Astrea ready to punish it with some great purification Novas, and that really gave him control of the game right there. We do have to note as well, +2 armor just now completes for those Stalkers. That's going to mean the carriers are not as powerful as they might otherwise be, and especially with only 3 carriers on the map. I think Astrea, he does need to, still be very careful, but he has taken control of this game once again.
Yeah, 7 disruptors against 5 and 35 Stalkers. Losing this base would be painful though, and does seem like he's going to give it up. He's going to send his disruptors in kind of by themselves. It's honestly very risky because the carriers could just left click on them or right click, and there we go. One of the, yeah, that's a little bit silly. Fortunately, he doesn't lose all of them. He actually only ends up losing a single one. One Nova on the top side of the map is connecting with a couple of the Stalkers, but Astrea doing a good job in avoiding those disastrous Purification Nova shots from Neeb. I mean, this game is just wild at this point. I mean, we are going into full-on base trade mode. Cannons are being completely ignored. Stalkers are dying to static defenses left and right, but yeah, who does it favor? Neeb does have the bigger army, StatFast.
Yeah, no, right before this base trade started, I was liking Astrea's position a lot, but now I mean, it feels like Neeb handled this last minute or so much better. Astrea, instead of, coming back to defend a base that he was probably going to lose, instead of coming back, he goes for a bit of a chaotic base trade, loses a fair number of units. Ooh, can he get some good disruptor shots? No, good blink back from Neeb. And this time there is an observer in the front line for Astrea, so it's going to be able to keep tabs on his opponent's army. Now, Neeb is on 0 minerals at the moment, and he really doesn't have any mining bases at all.
0. Like, I mean, Astrea still has a base, and technically there's some resources left on the left side as well. He's definitely within range. Like, that is Neeb's Nexus. The one on the right side is actually very, very important. Neeb needs to cancel it. But now he doesn't even have enough money to rebuild that Nexus. And that makes everything even worse. Does find a couple of units in the top left. I actually think Neeb needs to go ahead and try to end this game. But if he does that, he kind of exposes himself to potentially losing all his buildings. It's going to be hard. Like, I think if Neeb gets a good fight, he obviously can win. But near static defenses, I'm not sure. And if I was Astrea, I don't think I would even fight, man. I think I run around. My army is so fast and mobile.
Yeah, at the very least, you don't have to take a bad fight, is the big thing. You know what's funny is, no, we don't have a fleet. Oh my God, he's gonna blink forward in on top of this. The disruptors from Neeb will get some big shots, and Astrea actually might have just made a big mistake right there. He does commit in super hard, barely managing to avoid that one disruptor shot, but another one comes in, gets a massive shot. Astrea not like this.
Oh my goodness, like you said, if you want to take a fight, at least make sure it's not a disastrous one. You had the cannons, you had the batteries. Astrea felt like there was an opening, just like he thought there was an opening on 2K. But Neeb had multiple disruptors coming in from different angles, and when all those carriers are able to deploy those interceptors, they will wrap through those Stalkers real quick. And what was kind of that even or even a slightly bigger army for Astrea turns into 83 army supply Neeb and only 4